Welcome back into the Lions247 podcast. I am Tyler Donahue. We have all hands on deck for a fun episode today. Good way to bring us and you up to speed on this 2025 Penn State roster. We're going to do a 11-man draft. 4 different teams we're going to fill out. So 44 total players from this Penn State roster will be selected during the span of this episode. Daniel Gallen has done this with me before. So has Mark Brennan. We are bringing in Tyler Calvaruso, who has a really good lay of this roster at this point because of his experience as a recruiting insider with us. So should be fun, should be pretty competitive, should be some trash talking along the way. And at the end of the day, we will put together a story over at Lions247.com breaking down all 4 of these 11-man teams. Within that, you'll be able to vote on who you think would be the strongest team that would ultimately win in some kind of tournament. And there'll be some bragging rights on the line. We'll see who wins that vote a little bit later at Lions247.com. For now, let's bring in our other colleagues who are going to help us go through this draft process. Tyler Calvaruso, Daniel Gallen, and Mark Brennan. Gentlemen, this is a chance to have a little bit of fun, to get embarrassed a little bit with an audience watching us. And at the end of the day, I appreciate y'all being willing to sit down, do this for the next hour or so, and have a little bit of fun for our audience as well. This is one of the more unique episodes we get a chance to do, and one of my favorites on an annual basis.
I think Calvaruso may be fired up for this.
I am. I'm locked in. I got the whole board and everything. So.
And just so people know, I'm looking over here. I'm updating our list, so I'm not avoiding people. I'm not watching the Phillies who are on as we tape, thankfully so. But I'm watching over here because I have another monitor.
I want to go over a few things just so you know what we're picking and why we're picking a little bit here. There's not a lot of rules. Everybody on your team is going to have to play both sides of the ball, offense and defense, regardless of where they're going to play on the field for Penn State this season. You need 5 down linemen on offense, so a traditional kind of football setup there, but you can operate with as many wide receivers, running backs as you'd like, and the same goes for defensive backs, linebackers. Defensive personnel is really open to your interpretation, and oftentimes you're kind of forced to improvise because of what you end up with by the end of this draft. But again, it should be a good time. We're all going to have different strategies. I know there are a few spreadsheets that are set up on computers as we get into this, and we did the order for this draft last night. We had a chance to just put 4 names in the bowl, pick them out. Very complicated process. Tyler Calvaruso, the newcomer, is on top of the draft board. He'll pick first. Mark Brennan will pick second. I will go third. Daniel Gallen will go fourth. And we're doing a snake-style draft. And many of you familiar with that term from your fantasy drafts. It's going to work its way backwards. So Daniel will have the 4th pick and the 5th pick, and then it will go back and forth and back and forth. So Tyler will have back-to-back picks at the top of this draft occasionally. Daniel will as well. And we'll ultimately fill out our 11-man teams. I think without further ado, if you guys don't have any questions, we can hand the baton over to Tyler Calvaruso and get this party started.
I'm good. I'm ready, man. All right.
All right, then do it. Yeah.
All right. We're going to start under center. Drew Aller. Got to roll with him at QB. I'm going to throw him at Sam on defense.
Wow, this is a decision that could be very interesting as we build out these rosters. A quarterback comes off the board first. And as we'll talk about a little bit later, depending on where you pick a guy, he could be fantastic at one spot. He'd create a major liability for you in another. So Drew Aller off the board, senior quarterback. Mark, you are up next. And I know that's not going to bother you because a couple of years ago when Drew Aller was the next big thing, you surprised us. At least you surprised me. It turned out to be the pick of the draft. You went with Bo Pribula as your top pick. Where are you going this time?
Who won the fan voting last time, too?
If you're asking, I'm assuming you know the answer to that question.
Everybody loved Bo. Everybody loved Bo. I am going in a different direction. I think the drop off between QB1 and the other QBs is such that I don't want to leave value up there. So I am going with one Nick Singleton, running back and linebacker for me. Maybe safety. We'll see how this plays out.
Good pick, Mark. That would have been my pick at number 3 if you let me get him. But my backup plan, pretty good one. The 1A, 1B situation in the backfield, I'll go with whatever one's 1B or 1A. Kaytron Allen. I mean, we saw what he did in the postseason last year. If he can duplicate that success to any degree, he's in store for a tremendous season. Him and Singleton could finish number 1 and number 2 all time on the rushing leaderboard. And if anyone out there has any questions about the viability of Kaytron Allen handling himself, laying some lumber on defense, I'll let you be the one to go up to number 13 and tell him he's not going to fare well on defense. I feel very good about getting an absolute build-around-me type playmaker on offense while not becoming a liability on defense. In fact, I'm very intrigued at what Kaytron Allen could get done from either the linebacker or safety spot, depending on what is required of my defense. Daniel, you got back-to-back picks, the last one of round 1 and the first one of round 2.
Yeah, this is one of those things where in going through the process, it was like, should I load up on the skill guys? Should I build in the trenches? What's kind of the easier one to replace? And I'm going to build in the trenches here. Number 4, I'm going to go with Vanga Ioane, who will play guard and defensive tackle for me. And then I will lock in my other defensive tackle at number 5, Zane Durant, who will also play center for me.
I'm a little jealous of that because when I was in my mind's eye, I was imagining, could you come away with 2 linebackers off the top, and those would have been, or 2 linemen off the top, and those would have been my 2 picks. So strong foundational start for you in the trenches. I'm going to stay in the trenches as well. A little bit late to play offensive tackle, perhaps, but I think I'm taking the best defensive end on this roster. So whoever you're throwing his way, he can probably handle a little bit of offensive tackle. Denied Dennis Sutton. Looks like he could be the next first-round pick from this defensive line. We all acknowledge he took his game to the next level, looked every bit the 5-star prospect during postseason last year, to the point where we weren't sure if he would remain as a senior on the squad. He's here. We didn't see him in the spring, but all systems going to be go for Denied Dennis Sutton. So I feel really good about landing a foundational piece for my defense, and then a guy that I certainly think I can get through a game with at offensive tackle. And now we're back to you, Mark Brennan.
Yeah, this is tough. I am going to go with AJ Harris as a wide receiver / cornerback. To me, he's the highest value guy that's left there. And I think you're going to see with the wide receiver group, I think we're going to go heavy in DB. So I want to pluck the best DB, one of the 2 best DBs in my view. I'm not going to say who I think the other one is, but I think you all know.
Yeah, I think we can probably guess on that. Tyler, back to you. You've got Drew Aller on board. Now you've got a second and a third player to add into that mix. Who's your second-round pick? Who's your third-round pick?
All right, so I'm going to give Drew his wide receiver 1. I'm going to give him Trevor Pena. I'm going to put Trevor Pena at safety. He was an all-shore safety back in the day in high school, so he's got that experience at the position. I like him on the back end of my secondary. My plan to build through the trenches kind of went up in smoke when Zane Durant went off the board. So
we got hold on. We got the new kid saying his plans up in smoke at the end of round 2. We are in his head. Let's go, baby. Let's go.
Don't worry about that. I just hope my O-line doesn't get Drew killed at this point. But I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go Zeke Wheatley. I'm gonna put him at safety and then wide receiver.
If you're worried about Drew Aller, the first thing you said about him was he's going to play Sam linebacker, so he better be ready to roll in this matchup, whoever he's playing. I'm going to stay in the trenches here. He has not started a game at the college level.
I think it's me, isn't it?
It's Mark.
Oh,
yeah, it's Mark.
Who are you going to pick? Who are you going to pick?
Oh, I was gonna go with.
No, I'm kidding. Don't tell me.
Beckham Kritza. So if you want to take him, go for him.
I am dipping down into the trenches because I saw last year what happened when somebody didn't pick enough linemen and ended up having, or 2 years ago, and ended up having Kobe King playing guard. So I am going with the most versatile O lineman I think is left, and say that Cooper Cousins. I think he's undervalued in the EA Sports game, and I'm looking forward to Cooper being kind of he could play center, he could play guard, and I think over on defense, we've seen how tough he is. He can play D-tackle.
Yeah, great pick, and would have been my pick. So he's off the board. I hope I didn't encourage you to pick him. I hope he was going to be your pick already. If not, it's a tough pill I have to swallow. But that's my fault for jumping in the wrong order. Now it is my pick, and now I have a little bit of an issue because I was going to go lineman there, but I think I may pivot and go with a guy who can be my second running back. And I know he can be a standout linebacker. I think he's in for a big year here as a senior. And this is where, gentlemen, the roster versatility, all respect to the all-shore defensive back career of AJ Harris, this guy was all metro area offensive player of the year, Tony Rojas at running back. And so I feel really good about him handling the ball, lining up with Kaytron Allen. And then both those guys are going to be playing on the second level for me on defense. And so that's what I got. we're all adjusting on the fly. And Daniel, you've got back-to-back picks for us right now to finish out round 3 and get us into round 4.
Yeah, I am going to close out round 3 with another pick in the trenches. I'm going to go with Javen Williams, who is going to play tackle and defensive end for me. I think that we know the type of athlete he is. We saw some versatility for him during the spring. I think I like what he can bring. And now it's time to add some skill talent. I really like Tyler's Tony Rojas pick. It was fun to go through some of these guys' bios and look up what they did in high school, how much they did on either side of the ball. But someone who can do a lot of different things for you actually, I'm just going to go with one of the freak athletes that we know we have on defense. I'm taking Elliott Washington. He's going to play cornerback and wide receiver for me.
Ladies and gentlemen, what you just heard was Daniel working his way through the process out loud. I wish we could all get these NFL general managers mic'd up from the start of the process versus just the finish that we get to see. Good picks there, Daniel. I think I'm gonna spring another one of these position versatile things on you guys. Try to make a bit of a pivot move in the draft here, maybe, and take a kind of a page out of Brennan's book and taking a versatile quarterback who can handle his business on defense. Dom DeLuca. He's going to be a third-year captain for this Penn State squad this year. We know he can play linebacker. You know he's going to get you charged up. So who better to run my huddle with Drew Aller off the board than Dom DeLuca on offense? What has he done at quarterback? Well, remember, he led his team to a state championship game on one leg. He had more than 35 total touchdowns, more than 20 of them through the air as a senior and quarterback. And we all know if you get one definition of Dom DeLuca, you get everyone one opportunity in that room across the building to say what he is. They're going to say football player. So I'll take football player. He's going to play quarterback for me. Be steadfast. I don't need him wheeling and dealing, put on a fireworks show. He's got Tony Rojas and he's got Katron Allen behind him to work with as well. We'll get a line in front of him. We'll get him some weapons. But Dom DeLuca is going to be my quarterback. And all of a sudden it looks like I could have my 3 linebackers in Katron Allen, Tony Rojas, and Dom DeLuca.
I had him at QB. Wow. I can't believe he went that early.
You know what, Mark? I gave him serious thought over Tony Rojas because I thought your mind was spinning with DeLuca probably, and I didn't know how long I had, so I figured I'd pounce on him now.
I wouldn't have gone that early, but I love to pick. I'm going to follow Daniel's lead here, and I think there's enough skill players that I could build up later. So I got to start keep beefing up that line, and I am going to go with Drew Shelton, offensive tackle, and I think he can play anywhere on that defensive line that I need him. At least that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Tyler Calvaruso, we are back to you for 2, and we're starting to get into the thick of it here. Some of the marquee names have gone by, and going to be a nice little test for you in your first draft experience moving forward.
All right, I'm gonna make my first pick in the trenches. I'm gonna go with Alonzo Ford at guard, and then of course at D tackle. And do I want to go trenches again? Nah, I'm not gonna do it. Drew's gonna be in trouble, but that's okay. I'm gonna trust Drew is gonna be nice mobile for me. But I'm gonna go Zion Tracy at corner. Because remember back in the day, a lot of schools liked him at receiver. Terry Smith has even said, he's a guy who could play receiver for us if we really had to. But yes, I'm gonna go Zion Tracy there.
All right.
I think that's great. Can I just say, I do think Tyler has that right. If you're going to pick any defensive back and put him at receiver on this team, and you were going to do it in real life for this Penn State squad, I think Tracy would be the guy. So, tip of the cap to you, Tyler, for that one.
Sorry, I'm typing here, trying to keep up. All right. You guys could see my pick in the notes. I'm going with somebody who was first listed as an athlete by 247 Sports, eventually as a tight end, Khalil Dinkins. I think he's versatile enough that he could play tight end for me and maybe outside linebacker, maybe defensive end. I'll figure that out as we go along, but I like the versatility of a Khalil Dinkins.
He's a guy that I planned on not letting get past the 6th round if he was still available because of everything you just mentioned. And linebacker was definitely on the table with him as a college recruit. A few different positions were, but you've still left me with a guy that I did want, and I was planning to take it if he was there. And again, there's not a lot of guys who have been on the real big board, not our big board, but Penn State's big board on both sides of the ball as a blue chip target. Liam Andrews was. First, he was an offensive line target. We all had a chance to watch him from the sideline in the camp scene, and he was out there with Cooper Cousins, Alex Birchmeier, Javen Williams. I don't think any of us thought he looked out of place there. In fact, you could say it looked like he was toward the top of that group. Then all of a sudden, defensive line is his fixation. Deion Barnes says, okay, great. And from there, they recruit the hell out of him, comes to campus. Last year was a redshirt year in every sense of the word because of a recovery from an injury. He got his first college practice this spring. By the end of the spring, Daniel, you know this. You wrote the blue-white report on defense. He flashed a little bit in that game, got in the backfield a little bit. James Franklin referred to him as a big-bodied player. I think he's put on 30-plus pounds since he got here, and it is good weight. So I'm going to trust in what we witnessed and where I see his trajectory is, maybe moving ahead, and think that I got a guy who I can lean on both as an offensive and defensive lineman truly for my team in Liam Andrews. Probably a lot earlier than you'd think looking at the entire Penn State roster, but I think this is a versatile play for me and just a guy where I still really like where he's going to end up as a football player. And so that's it for me. And Daniel, you've got 2 for us.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a pick that I did 2 years ago. I think I did it, and I felt really clever doing it. We've got a little bit more tape, a little bit more physical development now.
You can't pick Amari Evans again.
Oh man, I liked what I had. I liked what I had on that offense. But I'm gonna go with Cam Wallace to play. You know, maybe he's a running back, maybe he plays a little wide receiver, maybe I have him in the slot, but he's playing defensive back on the other side of the ball. He was one of those late risers in the recruiting process, so you had someone who had a lot of experience there. And then I think I'm gonna add to my secondary again and my offensive firepower again. I'm gonna take Devontae Ross. He's someone that we've heard some good things about coming in. Has that versatility, can do some things with the ball in his hands. I like the idea of him in terms of short area quickness, being a corner or being a safety.
Starting to get a little bit late early at wide receiver. I had hoped to end up with Ross or Pena perhaps, but I'm happy here to go with Kyron Hudson. Gives me a true wide receiver here, a big-bodied guy who's played a bunch of Big Ten football. It also gives me someone who is one of the more physically imposing members of that receiver room, if not the most physically imposing. So I don't think there's going to be much of a problem in him holding up his end of the bargain in the defensive backfield, likely at safety, but we'll see how it shapes up. So all 3 transfer receivers have now come off the board. And Mark, we're over to you. Round 6 continues.
I'm sticking with my DB as wide receiver and going with King Mack. I think he's speedy enough, and we've seen enough of his ball skills, returning kicks and stuff, that he could get the job done.
Yeah, and Mack is a guy that may be the fastest player on this team, among the fastest players in college football. If you look at straight up 40-yard dash time, I believe he is the fastest guy on this current roster. Him, Elliott Washington in that kind of conversation. And so another interesting talent off the board there, another transfer pickup off the board there as well. And Tyler, you've got a couple for us. You're ending round 6. You're starting round 7. And if our listeners out there have lost track of what these teams look like, don't worry. We're going to circle back. We're trying to keep tabs ourselves. And at the end of this, we will lay out our plan for our team at the end of this thing. But Tyler, continue building out your roster for us, please.
All right, so on the interior defensive line, I'm going to go to Xavier Gilliam. I've said this time and time again, just evaluating him on the podcast with you guys. I love his athleticism, so I like him on the interior at D tackle for me, and I like him to play offensive tackle on the other side. I think his athleticism translates. I think he'd be a good guy for me in pass pro. Beyond that, again, I got to decide if I want to go trenches here or –
Talk us through it, man. Tell us what you're thinking.
I think I'm going to get slightly creative here. I'm going to go Luke Reynolds at tight end, and I'm going to put him at defensive end. I could see Luke Reynolds getting after it as an edge rusher. I mean, he's a freak, man. I can see it.
All right, we'll see what your team looks like. But that lethal tandem off the edge when you got Drew Aller lining up over the shoulder of Luke Reynolds is starting to sound like a fearsome defense there, Calvaru. So back to me, and I think it's time for me to probably address the offensive line again / defensive line, get in the trenches.
I think it's me, Tyler.
Second time I've done that, and second time I've kind of teed you up on where I was going. But thank you for the correction, Mark. Sorry about that, man.
I'm not going there anyway. I'm going to go with Grunk. I think it's time I get myself a QB. I think he's athletic enough that he could play some safety for me, and so I'm going with Grunk.
Okay.
You could have your trencher.
I can have my trencher. The next guy up for me, and don't feel bad about this at all, Nick Dawkins. He's going to be the leader for me on offense. I feel like I've got a lot of those, but obviously I've got the starting center for Penn State on my squad. Don't necessarily know what to expect from him as a defensive lineman. Not necessarily something I remember getting a long look at him coming up out of high school. He was certainly a dominant offensive lineman, the Pennsylvania Lineman of the Year. But I think he's going to be just enough. I mean, even if he's going to be a space eater for me on the defensive front, I think that's going to free up some of the other guys to do some damage at the end of the day. So Nick Dawkins, a trench pickup for me there.
Yeah, I think one thing that is one of the more difficult things to weigh is like the idea of a defensive end playing offensive line versus an offensive lineman playing defensive end. And I think especially with how beefy this Penn State offensive line is, it's kind of difficult to imagine some of these defenders lining up on that line. So I'm going to over-index on the trenches again. I'm going to take Anthony Donka here. He's going to play right guard for me. And then I'm going to put him at defensive end on the other side. I think that he's someone who's big, athletic. He can do some things there. And then in terms of adding some more beef on both sides of the ball, I'm going to take Andrew Rappelier as my tight end and linebacker. He might get bumped down to right tackle, but I like him as a linebacker, and we'll see where he fits in on offense eventually. Muted, Tyler.
I was saying this is getting tough, but clearly me muting myself kind of expressed that point. Yeah, a lot of the names are coming off the board here. The line is getting specifically lean. I'm sure you're all kind of picking up on that. Man, I think I'm going to go back to the skill spot. I've got another receiver spot to address, which means I've also got to address a defensive back in my defense. So I'm thinking, man, this is tough. I'm going to go a bit of a flyer here and go with a true freshman and Darius Dixon because he is somebody that I said on the last podcast that when Daniel was on with me, I think he's going to be the top impact freshman on this roster. I think he's a very versatile defensive back. And we'll figure it out at wide receiver. But he is really, when I look at the young portion of this roster, he's difficult to ignore. And so a kind of a high upside pick here with Darius Dixon, and I hope we can make some plays with him at wide receiver as well.
All right. I just changed. I was going to go with a veteran O-lineman, but I'm going to take a flyer on a younger offensive lineman who I think could also play D-line in Egan Boyer. I think you could put him out there. He's not that, 310 pounder. I think you could get away with playing him at defensive end. So I'm going to go with Egan Boyer.
All right. And that brings us over to you, Tyler. Back-to-back picks. And this is where those back-to-back picks get particularly burdensome toward the end of this process. Mark, I know you're keeping tabs. What round are we getting into now? Is this the start of round 9? Yes. Start of round 9. So Tyler,
it's the end of round 8. So end of round 8.
Yeah, and then the start of round 9. So Tyler, 9. bring us around the bend.
Okay, so I'm going to take a young guy in the trenches. I like Garrett Sexton as an offensive tackle for me with the ability to play some D-end as well. I'll roll with him. After that, I need some guys on. See what I'm doing.
I need some guys. Classic.
Yeah, I might have to do some shifting around on the depth chart once we get done here. Like I might have to move Luke Reynolds off. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna move Luke Reynolds off defensive end. He's gonna play linebacker for me. All right, I will go with TJ Shanahan on the interior on both ends. So he'll be a guard for me, and he'll play some D tackle. I'm gonna bump Gilliam down at the end for me. So there we go, TJ Shanahan.
That was 2 picks for you, right? We got both of them for you. I think I've got to stay on the defensive line. Sorry, it's not you. It's not me. It's Mark Brennan. Sorry. I've got to stop taking it from you on that direction. I always take it from you. Sorry, buddy. Go ahead.
Okay. It's okay. I need a true defensive lineman, so I will go with Caleb Ortiz.
All right, a guy that we haven't seen a ton of yet.
I needed somebody who's used to playing there, and I know he hasn't played a ton, but I have all these old linemen, and I just needed somebody who, and looking around, I could have gone young, but I'm going to go with somebody who's been around a little bit.
Hell, if we are going with find me a body, why am I not just going with the 5-star who stepped on campus? Because Caleb Artis, he's been around for 4 years. I haven't seen him do much. Malachi Goodman is my pick here. Haven't seen him do much either at the college level, but I saw him because Grace Brennan took a fantastic photo of him going sky high to grab a football at 300-plus pounds right now, 320-plus pounds as a freshman. There's a reason he was a 5-star prospect. There's a reason I'm not expecting him to do a ton on the field this fall because he's working at left tackle and they've got veterans there and they've got other pieces there. But he's going to have to play quite a bit for me on both sides, obviously, a defensive tackle, offensive tackle. And so Malachi Goodman, I think that's at least 2 or 3 freshmen on my team, more than I anticipated coming away with. And now we're back to you, Daniel.
Okay. Man. I think Andrew Rappelier is going to play right tackle for me.
He's gone.
No, so I already picked him.
Oh, you got him. All right.
Yeah, I'm slotting him in at right tackle because I do not trust any of these linebackers on the offensive line. And I am going to go offensive skill talent. I'm going to take Quentin Martin. So it gives me, Quentin Martin, Cam Wallace. We know that Quentin Martin could probably play the slot. He could probably play wide receiver for me. He could play safety on the other side. And then I'm going to go with another sight unseen player that we've heard a lot of good things about his athleticism. He was also, I think, listed as an athlete during the recruited process. I'm going to take Matt Outen as well.
All right. So 2 from Daniel and back to me now. Jeez, this is hard. This is tough. We're down to what we're at the end of round, or we're in round 10 now. So we're down to last 2 picks. Oh man, I'm gonna go with. I need a tight end, and I can't believe I'm loading up on more freshmen because I was joking with Tyler Calvaruso. He can take all the freshmen because he's so familiar with them coming off their recruitments. But I think as I look at tight end, and we'll figure out where he lands on defense. But Andrew Olish, another high upside play. Love what he is as a receiver. Not quite sure what he can be as a blocker right now as a freshman, but we'll figure that out. So Andrew Olish, come on board, and we're down to our last 5 or 6 picks of this entire draft now. Mark's got 2 more. Tyler's got 2 more. Then it's going to be the final couple going to Daniel and myself.
Yeah, this is tough. So I have 4 offensive linemen. This is where it gets really tricky, right? Because where do you stash these guys over on defense? So I'm second guessing my Caleb Ortiz pick, but I can't go back and change it. So I will go with somebody who, wow. Let me take a look. All right, I think I know what I'm going to do. I am going to go with Nolan Rucci and go with like a 5-man front with Egan Boyer as like a wide rush guy who could draw back a little bit. I can't leave Rucci sitting out there. I'm going to have a hell of an offensive line, but defensively, I'm going to be pretty slow.
Well, we're all bending backwards to try to figure out how to get to the finish line with our rosters right now. And Tyler, you have a chance to double up here, close out your team, and then you'll get a couple minutes, and we'll let you figure out how they line up on the field. But who are you closing things out with? Who are the last couple of additions, rounds 10 and 11?
Man, I put myself in a bad spot at center. I need someone there, so I'm gonna just.
Alvaruso, let me just tell you, it doesn't need to. I'll get you get out of jail free card here in case you need it. It's okay if the guy's not repping at center consistently. You can find yourself a center.
Trust me, he's not going to be repping at center.
Okay,
ever in
I just wanted you to know that you didn't have to be dealing within total reality where it's only one of those 4 or 5 guys is actually snapping the ball on the practice field.
Nah, I need a Mike linebacker too, so I got to So it's gonna have to be Amari Campbell. I don't really have a choice here. I feel I need a Mike, so it's gonna be Amari, and then best of luck to him at center. And then I mean, there's really no other way to put it. Originally my plan, I'm just gonna go through and do it now. Originally my plan was to do Tyke Hayes at running back and throw him at the Mike, but I'll throw him at corner now. So Tyke Hayes at running back, and I'll put him at corner.
All right.
Oh man. First, you really have me interested. I'm thinking, wow, Tyke Hayes at middle linebacker. I can get it. I love it. Now I'm thinking Tyke Hayes at cornerback. I love that matchup for my team. Love that. Oh, but that's
I don't
okay.
like it either, but
You've got Tyke Hayes backing up Drew Aller at linebacker, backing up Luke Reynolds at defensive end or whatever it was. So we'll hear it all from you. We'll get you the layout soon. Trust me, my team has problems too. I'm just messing with you because you're the new man on this.
Dude.
But yeah, and I'm also wanting to give all of us a little bit of time to figure out how we want to finish off with our last pick. So, Mark, that's enough time. What do you got?
I can't believe this guy's still out there. Dejon Lane. I will use him as a wide receiver and safety. And I think so. I have a tremendous defensive backfield outside of maybe Gronk. I really like it. But, yeah, my receiver core, they're going to have to go back to their high school and peewee football roots when they used to catch a lot of passes. So I'm going to go with Lane.
All right. I'm going to close out my team with another lineman, and we're throwing darts at the board here. He's another former high school quarterback too, Garrett Sexton, big fella, 300 pounds. He was once 100.
Yeah, Sexton's off the board.
Shit. All right. Well, we were bound to have it happen, right? Round 11 is when we get a duplicate.
You're taking everybody's pick. You're
Going out of order.
Control.
The problem, like I told you, is drafting is hard. Hosting the draft and drafting at the same time is very, very hard. Man, I'm going to need a second because I thought I had that one kind of laid up for like the last 2 minutes of my life. So I'm just navigating real quick on the offensive line, defensive line here. You guys took a bunch. Okay, I got somebody. No one took Birch yet, right? Birchmeyer?
Right.
I didn't miss that one. Okay, I feel good about that one because I think he's further along in being Big Ten playable ready than Garrett Sexton right now. I also know that Birchmeyer was a 2-time state champion on the wrestling mat in Virginia, and so I'll take my chances with him on the defensive front as well, winning some of those one-on-one battles. Remember, I know Birchmeyer's kind of been out of sight, out of mind for his first couple of years on campus as a former top 100 overall prospect. But James Franklin told us this spring that the light has come on for him. He doesn't use that designation for a lot of guys, and when he does, it tends to be accurate. So I think Birchmeyer's trending toward being a 2-deep piece on the interior for this Penn State team, and now he is my 11th pick because Garrett Sexton went off the board. So what do we got? You're closing us out, Daniel, and then we'll huddle up and see what we actually make of these teams.
Yeah, so I do not have a quarterback yet, and that is something that I was playing the board. I had DeLuca was high in my quarterback board. I had Luke Reynolds high in my quarterback board as well.
Daniel, when we did this last time, you had your last pick as was it Omari Evans as your last pick at quarterback? And
I don't know if he was my last pick, but
he was your quarterback, right?
Yeah. Omari Evans was my quarterback, and I think I'm going to go back to a similar spot on that. I'm going to take Joey Schlaffer as my quarterback. He played it at Exeter. He can fit in at linebacker for me. He's gotten really big since he's been here. And yeah, maybe he doesn't have the best arm of this group, but he's going to be back there with Quentin Martin and Cam Wallace. You've got Devontae Ross and Elliott Washington, 2 fast guys, get the ball out in space. And so I think that gives me a solid on both sides of the ball. And I don't have that necessarily glaring weakness of the quarterback there defensively.
All right, so those are the picks. 44 different names. Garrett Sexton's name you heard a couple times, but not bad. Only one repeat along the way. It's a scramble. If you couldn't pick up on that, and this was even with giving us a couple days advance notice, knowing we had this draft. It's a tricky exercise. It's a fun one. And so we're going to put a bow on it here in the next few minutes by going through our teams, talking out loud about what this might look like. And you can get a more detailed look over at Lions247.com. I think once this is up, we'll also pair it with a piece that breaks down each of our teams and includes a poll. So our listeners, our readers at Lions247.com get a chance to go over there and tell us who you think would come out on top between these four teams. You guys are going to let me go last in telling you what my team looks like, because I haven't really had a chance to look at it. I'm trying to set the stage for you a little bit. Is anyone willing to step up and say they're ready to declare what their offensive defense looks like?
I have somebody breaking into my house. Hold on.
Okay. Daniel?
Yeah, I can run down what I have. I think I just wanted to make sure I wasn't exposed on the trenches at all. I think that was my big strategy going in. I know that you can talk about my quarterback, but I feel like that they have to be able to stand up. They have to be able to have some time to make things happen. So across the front on the offensive line, we've got Javen Williams, Venga Ioane, Zane Durant, Anthony Donka, and then Andrew Appelier at right tackle. In terms of pass catchers, Elliott Washington and Devontae Ross. And then you'll have Quentin Martin and Cam Wallace, two guys who can line up in the slot, get moved around a little bit. They'll be in the backfield with Joey Schlaffer at quarterback. The defensive line, it's pretty beefy. I'm not sure what they have in terms of pass rush juice, but they should be able to hold up against the run with Javen Williams, Venga Ioane, Zane Durant, Anthony Donka across the front. You have Joey Schlaffer and Andrew Rappelier, two big athletic guys playing linebacker. My safeties I forgot to put Matt Outen on my offense. So Matt Outen will be another one of those pass catchers. And then defensively across the back, Elliott Washington, Devontae Ross at corner. I think I'll play Cam Wallace in the slot. And then safeties, Matt Outen and Quentin Martin Jr.
All right, Daniel, thank you for stepping up to the plate there. And again, you can check that out in further detail at Lions247.com. Mark, you ready now?
Yeah, the photographer is back there trying to get a camera. Well, I have Grunk at quarterback, which I like. Singleton at running back, which I really like. 3 DBs at wide receiver, but I think all of them are good enough athletes to get the job done. Khalil Dinkins, I really like at tight end. I think he's one of the more undervalued guys on this team. And then O-line, I think I'm fine. I mean, I put Cooper Cousins at center, Shelton and Egan Boyer at tackle. I'll shift Rucci inside at guard along with Caleb Ortiz, who, that's probably the one wild card I had. Nothing against Caleb, but I think you made a pretty good point that if you were picking, maybe going with a guy like Goodman, who's just a freak athlete, might have been a better way to go. Defensively, I'm fine in the defensive backfield. You have to find a place for your quarterback, and Grunk's going to play safety. I think King Mack is versatile enough that he could play cornerback along with A.J. Harris, and then Lane would be the other safety. My linebackers, only 2. Singleton and Dinkins. Again, Singleton, I don't know what his background is like playing defense, probably not much, but Khalil Dinkins, we know what he was about in high school. And then I'm going with the 5-man front. It's a big front 5. It's just going to dominate people with Cooper Cousins, Shelton, Boyer, Ortiz, and Rucci. So it's going to be the tallest defensive line in history, and probably maybe not the heaviest, but very tall. So they're going to get after it. Defensive end was really tough in this one because you have to find a place for the DNs to play over on offense. And I think Dennis Sutton is one guy who, kind of was a good fit. But as, the other guys that you're looking at, Burnett, Kamaju, I mean, who am I forgetting? There's somebody, veteran. Crap.
Yeah, Zariah Fisher.
Yeah,
Fisher. You're right. I mean, they're all 250, 260 pounds, and it's a stretch to say, go block as an offensive tackle, which I had Kobe King at offensive guard last time, and we'll get to Tyler's offensive line in a second. Yeah, it's tough.
Right, but so that's where when I took Dinkins, that was getting rid of taking another DN, but I ended up not playing him at DN just because of the way things kind of played out. So, yeah, obviously my weak spot would probably be not having kind of that front four of traditional players, but I'm throwing some really good big athletes out there and hoping they do well.
And I mean, at the end of the day, you're only dealing with 3 other teams. You don't got to play the Big Ten. You've just got 3 teams of 11.
And the way you guys
beat.
drafted, I mean, God, it was.
Yeah, and you teed it up perfectly. Tyler Calvaruso, tell us what you've got. First draft experience, aside from a few extra ulcers, what do you have for us?
All right. I got Drew at quarterback, Tyke Hayes at running back. I like my wide receiver trio. I got Trevor Payne, Zakee Wheatley, and Zion Tracy. Tight end Luke Reynolds. Tackle Xavier Gilliam. My other tackle is going to be Garrett Sexton. My 2 interior guys at guard are going to be Alonzo Ford and TJ Shanahan. Center, I'm so sorry, Amari Campbell. I hope you survive playing center, but you're going to be my center. Defensive ends, Gilliam and Sexton. D tackles, Alonzo Ford, TJ Shanahan. Linebackers, Drew at the Sam, Amari Campbell at the Mike. Like I said, I moved Luke Reynolds to my will backer spot. I made some changes in the secondary as well because I like Tyke Hayes at safety more than I do corner. So it's going to be Tyke Hayes and Trevor Payne on the back end at safety, and it's going to be Zion Tracy and Zakee Wheatley at corner.
Okay. I also went with a 5-man front, Mark, on defense. The more I looked at it, it's the only real feasible way I felt like I could, go and put this thing together. I'll start with my offense, though. Dom DeLuca, as I said, at quarterback. I've got 2 running backs with him, Katron Allen, Tony Rojas, 2 wide receivers, Kyron Hudson, Darius Dixon, both of them out of Mater Dei High School. Just put that together. Southern California powerhouse. Tight end, Andrew Olish. My offensive tackles are Garrett Sexton and Denai Dennis Sutton. My offensive guards are Malachi Goodman and Liam Andrews. And then my center is Nick Dawkins. You look over on defense. Again, I'm going 5-man up front. Out wide in that group on the perimeter, it'll be Garrett Sexton and Denai Dennis Sutton. And then the 3 interior guys, Nick Dawkins, Liam Andrews, and then Malachi Goodman. I got 2 primary linebackers, Andrew Olish. It'll be a test for him, but he's got the right body type for it. And then Tony Rojas. I'm dropping Dom DeLuca back to play more of a safety role in this situation. So I'm losing a little bit with him not being at linebacker, but you could do worse for having to improvise defensively with your personnel after this kind of a draft. So I've got DeLuca and Katron Allen as my 2 safeties, and then my cornerbacks, Kyron Hudson and Darius Dixon. So 44 players to work with here, 4 different teams. Any final points from either of you based on what you just experienced?
I thought that Aller going number 1 was interesting. And as I was going through the process, because I think when he went 2 years ago, it was very hard to figure out where to hide him on defense. But when I was doing my rankings,
him, right? I believe I picked him in round 1, and almost immediately or whenever I picked him, I was like, this is like, what is he going to be on defense and how do I hide him? And yeah, that's like that. Like, yeah, you get the best passer on the roster, but what else is he for your team?
Yeah. Well, as I was putting together my big board, he ended up being a lot higher than I thought he would be, given what we saw from him last year in terms of that physical development, a little bit more agile. We're seeing a little bit more of that athleticism from him. And then we saw that attitude, which I think plays at linebacker in the middle of your defense or on your defense. So I thought he was a really interesting case in this exercise, who I think maybe compared to anyone on the roster, what we thought of him 2 years ago when doing this is maybe the most different in terms of what we've seen out of him and what his athletic capabilities are that he's shown. So I thought that was really interesting and stood out to me during the pre-draft process.
Mark, any post-draft commentary from you?
Yeah, Jackson Smolik didn't come off the board. Kritza, the Squirrel, Davian Collins. I thought somebody might find a spot for him. 2 young guys who I really would have liked to found a place for, but I couldn't, was Kamaju and Kordovich. I mean, I think Kordovich is, I think he, of the tight ends, I think he's a guy who could really play tackle. I don't know what Penn State's listing him at. I guess I could look it up here, but just seeing him at camps and stuff.
250-ish. I think they've got him pushing towards 250.
Yeah, that's a really
he looks bigger than that. I mean, he's a big kid. So Chimdi Ono, a guy who, again, I think could probably have played on either side of the board. Obviously, I have this list. And again, I apologize, everybody, for looking over here, but we have so much stuff going on. And I'm trying to see if there's anybody else. Vabu Torre, he's another guy who was kind of on my board that didn't go, as was Burnett. So I'm looking Ty Blanding. Where could he have played guard for somebody? Just kind of going through some of these things and wondering, who were the best players who were kind of left off. Was there anybody I missed that you guys are thinking was obvious that it's kind of crazy that we left them off?
Squirrel, Davian Collins. He was the number one guy left on my board. He didn't really match with what I needed toward the end of the draft. I think that's really more you have to gear towards. And I would just say, maybe not a surprise, but not a single wide receiver who's played games for the Penn State was drafted. Yeah. But the two guys I really seriously, and they were right underneath Collins that I looked at, Tyser Denmark and Kobe Howard, actually, yet another freshman. And I think my biggest takeaway, I just had a chance to kind of work my way through 6 of the 11 guys I picked. And again, 44 total guys from this team are involved here. 6 of the guys that I picked had not started for Penn State yet. And I think that's kind of a good example of what we're looking toward in this. You're looking toward crafting a team that's going to gather on a neutral field and go beat 11 other guys. You're not trying to build a too deep with this conversation. You're not trying to build a Big Ten schedule ready team. And so 6 guys on my team haven't started for Penn State yet. And I've got several who just joined the team this year: Kyron Hudson, Darius Dixon, Malachi Goodman, Andrew Olish. And so I think a point for that is it's good for Penn State because a lot of the guys we're talking about here in 2025, they're going to matter right now. But I think you work your way through the layers of this roster. If we were doing this draft 5 or 6 years ago, and we did do this draft on this podcast 5 or 6 years ago, didn't feel like you could reach into the lower rungs of the roster and some of the unproven younger segments of the roster and find the kind of talent that's maybe available there now. And so I think that's something to be said about this team's ability to build a contending group. Are they at Ohio State's level quite yet? Probably not where James Franklin wants them to be, but I think they have reached a different kind of realm in that roster construction conversation.
Hey, a couple guys,
Tyler?
Liam Clifford and Caden Saunders. I think that's just a matter of most of us look at these defensive players and think that they'd be able to transition easier to wide receiver. I don't think we're taking shots at these guys. It's just the way it kind of played out. I mean, I don't know that I could see either of those guys fitting in as easily in the defensive backfield as I could see King Mack or Zach Key or Harris or, really Washington, any of those guys fitting in over on offense.
This thing to me, this exercise is just reminds me it's so skewed towards the trenches because if you don't address it early in this draft, it gets really dicey late and you're sacrificing all these other spots. And it reminds me of something James Franklin told those linemen at one of these big man challenges in the summer. And I'm sure it's a line he delivers to that group every single time. But he said, without you guys don't do your job, all the other guys, doesn't really matter how fast they are, how agile they are, how exciting they are with the ball, because it gets blown up from the start of it. And you kind of learn that again, whether you're building the roster for real or just here on a fantasy level. If you don't take care of those trenches, you end up with Amari Campbell at center.
Well, yeah, I'm looking at Cooper Cousins taking on Amari Campbell, and I think Cooper's going to do okay as a defensive, as a nose tackle.
Why do you think I said pray for Amari, dude?
yeah, like going off what Mark said about the DBs is like it's easier to project the DBs as wide receivers, and it's easier to project some of these offensive linemen as defensive linemen than vice versa. One young guy that was really intriguing to me. Like when I made my board, I had an overall big board, then I had positionally, and then inside the positions, I marked all the guys who had quarterback experience, just to have that in my back pocket. And I went through and I marked down guys who had both ways experience from high school or, that extra versatility. So like I had like Quentin Martin, Cam Wallace marked in that. I had Braz Thomas marked down as one of those guys where, we saw what he did at camp. As a wide receiver and as a safety. Obviously, we haven't actually seen what he can do on the practice field or on the game field for Penn State. But he was someone that, as I was doing my board, I had him a little bit higher up among the safeties than maybe I would have in the past. And moving forward, we'll see if that background comes into play and for further exercises on this.
Yeah, big projection versus production conversation in this draft as well. But we'll leave it to you now. It's out of our hands. It's in your hands, the audience. Go over to Lions247.com. I'll have a big piece breaking down each of these 11-man teams. We'll have a poll there. You can decide who gets to brag about this for the next several weeks and let us know. Guys, appreciate it. It's a fun thing. It's a little bit of a challenge as well. So thanks for doing a little bit of homework before we got to sit down and do this. Tyler, baptism by fire, good stuff. We'll do it again next year. Daniel, Mark, I want to just put it out there. No podcast next week. We're going to take a 1-week hiatus, spending some time with family before we really start to get on that roller coaster toward preseason camp. So no podcast. Hopefully this can last you for a little bit longer, and we'll be back with plenty to discuss for the second half of July and then into the start of preseason camp. So guys, I hope you enjoy a little time away from the podcast as well. You know how much I lean on all three of you over the course of the calendar year. We don't take a lot of weeks off from this podcast, but we're going to do that now in mid-July when we come up for air, and then we'll come back into it. All of a sudden, you guys will be out in Las Vegas for Big Ten Media Days, and we are one step closer to seeing this team out there with pads on the practice field. So big thanks to you, big thanks to our audience, and we'll just step aside for just a week here, and we'll be back with a bunch of episodes after that. So on behalf of the whole crew, this has been the Lions 24/7 podcast. I'm Tyler Donahue. We'll talk to you soon.